All right, let's dive in. We're going thousands of leagues below the surface to explore one of the most fascinating and mysterious characters in all of literature, Captain Nemo. This is a man who literally turned his back on the entire world, a genius who built his own kingdom in the abyss, and a revolutionary whose search for absolute freedom, well, it came at a staggering cost. So let's get into this incredible story. So our story doesn't begin with a man, it begins with a monster. Picture this, it's the year 1866, and a wave of pure panic is gripping the globe. There's this unknown thing, a moving mass they call it, with incredible speed and power, and it's menacing the world's shipping lanes. As the captain of the Governor Higginson saw off the coast of Australia, this thing wasn't just big, it was powerful, shooting these massive jets of water high into the sky. It was a complete mystery that terrified sailors and baffled scientists. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this incredible story. We're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we'll start with the mystery of the monster in the deep. Then, we'll get to the big reveal in The Man and His Machine. After that, we'll really dive into his whole worldview in an ocean kingdom. And finally, we'll confront the consequences in freedom's terrible price. All right, let's kick things off with that mystery. Because before anyone had ever heard of Captain Nemo or his incredible ship, the world was just trying to figure out what in the world was causing these violent and totally bizarre encounters out at sea. And when you actually look at the timeline, you start to see this pattern. This wasn't just random chance. The Moravian, for example, it hits what the crew swears is a rock, but all the sea charts show that there's nothing there. Then the steamer Scotia gets hit, and this is where it gets really weird. The damage isn't just a random gash, it's a perfect, clean-cut, isosceles triangle punched right through an iron plate over an inch thick. I mean, the force required to do that is one thing, but the precision to make a hole that perfect and then withdraw? This wasn't some dumb animal, this was something intelligent. So as you can imagine, the whole world is just scrambling for answers. Could it be a moving reef? No way, it moved way too fast. What about a top-secret war machine? Now that seemed plausible, but every single government on Earth flat out denied having anything like it. This uncertainty just fueled a global panic, right? It was threatening to shut down commerce and basically turned the open oceans into this massive realm of fear. And right into the middle of all this chaos steps our narrator, the famous French naturalist, Professor Pierre Aronnax. He looks at all the evidence, all the reports, and he publishes his theory. It has to be a gigantic narwhal. A sea unicorn, he calls it, but one of unbelievable size, armed with a horn strong enough to punch through an ironclad ship. This idea completely captures the public's imagination, and it's what gets Aronnax invited to join the American frigate the Abraham Lincoln on its mission to hunt this thing down and destroy it. But here's the twist, right? The hunt for the supposed monster, it leads to a discovery that is way, way more shocking than anyone could have possibly imagined. It's the reveal of the man who created his own world and the incredible machine that made it all possible. So after this long, grueling chase, the Abraham Lincoln finally gets attacked. And in the chaos, Aronnax, his loyal servant Conseil, and this hot-headed Canadian harpooner named Ned Land are all thrown overboard. They're clinging to life in the middle of the ocean when they realize they're not on the back of some sea creature, they're on the metal hull of a submarine. They're captured, brought inside, and the monster they've been hunting, it's not a monster at all. It's a marvel of engineering, the Nautilus. And this thing, the Nautilus, is just an absolute masterpiece, decades, maybe a century ahead of its time. Its commander, Captain Nemo, explains that everything, and I mean everything, is sourced from the sea. Its power, its food, the fabric for their clothes, even the ink in their pens. It was built completely in secret, with parts ordered from dozens of different companies under fake names and then assembled on some deserted island. And the inside? It's not some cramped military vessel, it's like a palace, with a library of 12,000 books, priceless works of art, and a collection of marine wonders worth a fortune. You know, the ship's motto, which is engraved on everything, really says it all. Mobilist in mobilis. It means being a mobile object within a mobile element. He hasn't just escaped to some island to hide. No, he's embraced a life of constant motion, always moving, forever free from any fixed point on the land, on the world, that he completely despises. And this quote gets right to the heart of it. This is the why. Nemo didn't build the Nautilus just as a science project. He built it as a declaration of total independence. For him, the ocean is the last place on Earth where you can truly be free. In this one powerful line to Aronnax, he just lays it all bare. He has cut every single tie with humanity to become the one and only master of his own fate. Okay, so this really brings us to the core of who Captain Nemo is. His genius is off the charts, but it's all fueled by this deep, bitter rejection of the world he left behind. Let's really dig into the philosophy of his underwater kingdom. This comparison right here really lays out his whole worldview, plain and simple. He looks at the surface world, the land, and all he sees is corruption. It's a place ruled by despots, where men are constantly fighting and destroying each other, a place filled with what he calls terrestrial horrors. But just 30 feet below the waves, poof, all of that just disappears. As he says, their power ceases, their influence dies out, their might disappears. The sea is his sanctuary. It's a pure, clean world where the injustice of mankind just can't touch him. But, and this is a huge but, Nemo isn't just some hermit hiding away. He's actively fighting against the world. When Aronnax asks him where all his incredible wealth comes from, Nemo reveals that the gold he pulls from sunken treasure ships, it's not for him. He's secretly using it to fund revolutions and help oppressed people on the very same land he claims to have abandoned. He is just a walking contradiction, a man completely disconnected from humanity who is also fighting for it from the bottom of the ocean. But of course, this perfect, isolated life of freedom, well, it's not invincible. In this last section, we're going to see how Nemo's utopia gets shattered by a brutal, terrifying encounter that shows the true, violent cost of his ideals. I mean, the Nautilus has gone up against warships, it's survived massive storms, but now it's about to face a real monster of the deep, a whole school of giant squid, or pulps as they're called. And these aren't just legends, they are very real, incredibly powerful, and extremely dangerous. They're a force of nature you can't reason with, and you can't intimidate with technology. And the battle that follows, it is absolutely horrific. The squid's tentacles get tangled in the submarine's propeller, so the crew has no choice but to go up to the deck and fight them hand-to-hand with axes and harpoons. It's just total chaos, this primal, desperate struggle. In the middle of it all, one of the biggest squids grabs a crewman. Nemo rushes in to save him, but he just gets knocked aside by the creature's immense strength. And right in front of everyone, the man is lifted into the air and dragged down into the monster's horrible parrot-like beak. And this one detail, this one sound, just drives home the human cost of it all. Aronnax hears the man's final desperate cry. And in that moment of pure terror, this disciplined crewman of the Nautilus, he just reverts back to the language of his childhood, his mother tongue, screaming a last, hopeless appeal. This wasn't some philosophical battle anymore. It was just a brutal, violent death. You have to understand, for Captain Nemo, this loss is just devastating. Here's a man who built an indestructible fortress to protect himself and his crew from the evils of humanity, and he's completely powerless against the raw violence of nature. He created a world where he had no masters, but he couldn't master the sea itself. The death of his crewmen just shatters that cold exterior, and we see this deep well of grief, of humanity that he tries so hard to hide. We see the real man, weeping for his lost friend. And his perfect, free world is revealed to be a fragile and ultimately very lonely illusion. And that leaves us with the big question at the heart of Captain Nemo's story. He achieved a kind of freedom that most of us can't even fathom. But to get there, he had to embrace violence, total isolation, and in the end, profound loss. He broke every chain that tied him to the human race, only to find that his own heart was still chained to it. The story of Captain Nemo is really this timeless question. Is escaping the world really worth the price of what makes us human within it?